Hey everyone, happy Monday, happy Veterans Day. Shout out to all of the veterans out there. Thank you so much for your service. Thank you for fighting for our country and democracy at large all over the world. It is another Monday. So if you are a first timer here on the Other Side podcast, welcome. Because here on Mondays on the Other Side podcast, we talk about the different aspects of our mental health journey and what we can do to help each other grow and learn and all of the other things included in that. I am really excited because I am just coming back from a visit. Hey, Sarah. I just came back from a visit to Chattanooga, Tennessee. Didn't think I would ever really say that. But I came back from an event where I was trained to be a professional public speaker. Shout out to Vincent Phipps and what he was able to put together. I met with a new class of people. We're calling ourselves hashtag the hot ones or hot newness. Sorry. New hotness. There we go. I got it right now. New hotness. And such a wonderful, loving group of people. I'm really, truly honored to have been working with them to really work on our craft and be able to share our messages that we know are so needed in this world. And one of the messages that I shared with everybody was how to let go of perfectionism and embrace excellence. And a big part of that is dealing with shame-based thinking. And I'm not going to get into the 3 major steps that I talk about. However, one of the aspects of letting go of perfectionism has to do with creating connections and opening up to people and being vulnerable and all of that. And it really led me to what I wanted to talk about today, which is the topic of the need to be seen and why that's so important. I really felt like at the end of so this is the first time I ever did a keynote speech. I've done plenty of workshops on this, but it was my first time doing a keynote speech. And it was really important for me to be able to create a level of connection that I know I make when I'm doing my workshops. And so one of the things that I did, or when I do my workshops, is I have everybody write a letter to their future, to their self, really not even their future self, just to themselves, as a form of practicing self-compassion. And instead of having everybody write a letter because it wasn't a workshop, it was a keynote address, I instead said a letter out loud to several people who were in the audience, including the other 6 speakers who were there. And it really, really put a magnifying glass on what I believe is this need for us to feel seen and understood. Practicing as a genetic counselor for over 15 years, I knew it straight away. The minute I started practicing after graduate school, after getting over my own, just trying to figure out what it's like to be in this new profession, really quickly, I started to understand that people have this need to feel seen and understood. And I felt like that was my job. And I really spent a lot of time working on that and getting really good at that. And so I really wanted to dig into that because I feel like we're not doing enough of that. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're being ignored. A lot of people feel like they're alone in the world, like they don't have a connection, like they don't have a best friend. If that's you, if you have felt that way, if you know people who feel that way, please go ahead and put a 1 in the comments and let me know that this is not a new topic for you. I'd love to know that I'm not alone here. It is not just me. Put a 2 in the comments if this is new for you. If this is all brand new and you're here for all of the knowledge and explanation, please let me know. I will shout you out as well. City to Inspire. Thank you. You understand that this is a real thing. This is happening. A lot of people are feeling isolated and alone. And so I really thought it would be important for us to go over that, talk about why, as well as what can we do to also start to create those connections? What can we do to be the change that we want to see in the world? So one of the things that I figured it would be most important to talk about is why is it that we have this human need, this human desire to feel seen, to feel that we're being understood? And the first of several reasons, but the first one is just self-worth. It affirms our worth when others recognize us as who we are as people. It validates our self-worth, helps us feel appreciated, and it does a lot for our self-esteem. So that is the number one thing. When you feel seen and understood, it really does validate your self-worth. The other reason why we need this is social belonging. I think we keep thinking for some reason that we can be isolated beings and it will be totally okay. It is not true. We are built as humans to be connected to others and to feel like we belong within a group of people. I had a long conversation with Donnelly, who was one of the speakers this weekend, and we were talking about the difference between being included and belonging. And I was saying, yeah, you can be invited to the table, but that doesn't mean like you feel like you belong at the table. And the difference for me is when you feel like you belong, people want to hear from you. They want to hear how you're doing. They want to hear your voice. Not, oh, we're doing it just to do it, to say that we invited you, but don't say anything. Right? This a sense of belonging, you feel like you should be there and the people around you want you to be there as well. So this social belonging is huge. It's a huge thing that happens when you feel like you're being seen. So when you're genuinely seen by others, it fulfills this core human need to belong. It makes you feel included, right? And also connected. And that's the bit, right? Like when you're connected, you feel like people want to be around you, that people want you to be at the table. So that feeling seen and understood is a big part of that. And the third reason why we need it is it creates emotional security. Recognition provides emotional security, and it reassures us that our feelings, our thoughts, our identity, they matter. This is really, really crucial for our mental well-being, to know that how you feel, who you are, it matters to somebody. That goes right along with the sense of belonging, that it matters that you're there. And also your self-worth. You matter to someone. So your sense of worth of self is heightened because of that. So these are the three biggest reasons that I can identify for why we feel this need to be seen and understood. So it's totally normal. And that's exactly what you need, right? Hey, Verdi, I'm so glad that you're finding this valuable. So what are some signs that you could maybe having some surface level connections? One is the lack of depth in the conversation. So you're just kind of talking about the weather, you're talking about, things that you need to buy at the grocery store, things like that. But there's no real meaningful topic that's discussed. And so there really isn't a connection made for that reason. Another sign that you're having a surface level connection is the one-sided support. So when someone shares deeply and the other one doesn't really do that in kinds, right? So you share deeply or you ask for support, but the other person doesn't do the same thing for you. And so that's going to feel like really lopsided and is going to create a really superficial connection. And the third sign is conditional engagement. So if interactions feel like you're only able to have those interactions based on the convenience or self-interest of the other person. So rather than a genuine interest in like, hey, how are you? What's going on in your life? It's instead like, oh, I can only reach out to you when I know it's good for you and you're okay or something like that. It's like there's conditions. You just feel like it's conditional whether I can actually reach out and have a relationship or a conversation with this person. So those are three signs that you're having superficial connections. One, lack of depth of the conversation. Two, it's one-sided. And three, if there's conditions for the engagement at all. So what can we do? What are some steps that we can do to build meaningful relationships? And I talked a lot about this again during my keynote speech, and I really want to really be clear that showing vulnerability and opening up about your thoughts, your fears, your dreams, things that you have been scared about, shame that you have felt about yourself, beliefs that you've had about yourself. And of course, you want to do this in a safe context, with people that you can trust, of course, but sharing in this way, being vulnerable, which requires courage, by the way, right? Because, it takes courage to share all of these things, to feel like, you're totally naked in front of this person, you're just bearing it all. But doing so actually builds connection, and it invites other people to reciprocate, to do the same things, to share with you. So sure, it takes courage, but this is really where connection happens. And again, we all have this need to feel seen and understood. How can you possibly be seen and understood if you don't actually get the courage to be vulnerable and share? So it doesn't come like you just aren't going to be seen automatically. It does require you to put in some effort to actually share as well. City to Inspire, thank you for what you're saying. Sometimes it feels I don't know if everybody can see it. There it goes. Sometimes it feels like someone is interacting to show you how valuable they are. It leaves you feeling small. I'm going to read that again. Sometimes it feels like someone is interacting to show you how valuable, oh, they are. I see. Yes. And it leaves you feeling small. 100%, right? It feels really disingenuous and you don't feel connected at all. You feel, to your point, even smaller because they're just doing it to like make them see themselves feel bigger or important or have value in some way that maybe you don't. And so it definitely is not a good connection. You want it to be reciprocated of 100%. Yeah, totally agree. So number one, in order to build meaningful relationships, you're going to have to be vulnerable. Number two is practice active listening. I got trained on this a lot when I volunteered for a suicide prevention hotline. I then used this a lot when I was being trained to be a genetic counselor and then practicing genetic counseling. I also think that a part of me is there's a part of me that does this organically. And so the training that I had really just further honed my skills in this, or made me actually more aware that I was even doing some of this. But active listening, guys, it's when you actually listen and understand. It is not to listen to respond. That's not it, right? And I really want to make sure this is really clear because I don't think a lot of us, I think everyone's, I shouldn't say everyone. I think a lot of people listen to respond. I don't think people listen to understand and really take in what someone's saying. That means you listen without interrupting. You make eye contact and you're paying close attention to what the person is saying. And you're listening to understand. You're going to reflect on what they said. All of this is really important. When you do that and you actually listen for understanding, paying close attention, not looking at your phone, not like, oh, let me look around everywhere else. No. When you're actually paying attention and looking them in the eye, this is huge. This is a huge way for someone to feel valued and seen and understood. And you know that you want it too. You know that when you're talking to someone and they start looking to the side, they start looking on their phone, they're looking distracted, they're not really looking at you, they're not really focused on what you're saying. You know that when you're talking and then someone immediately interrupts you, you're like, oh yeah, me too. I also went to the thing, and it's like, just let me talk for a second. It seems like you are more concerned about what you have to say than actually listening to me, right? Like you don't want someone to do that to you. So really it takes effort. It's active. That's what they call active listening. It takes an effort for you to do this, but it's so crucial and it's so important to creating these relationships and helping each other feel seen and heard. Alex, no, sorry. It's okay. I wasn't referring to you. You're totally fine. But I think we can also say we're all guilty of that too. I'd be lying if I wouldn't say that there weren't some times where I've caught myself not actively listening, right? I'd be totally lying if I said I haven't interrupted someone or I've never done that. Guilty, totally guilty of doing that. And when I do it, I most times I recognize it, not every time, but most times I recognize it and I try to reel it in and counter that with, okay, hold on, Janelle, do you really need to say that right now? Do you really need to cut this person off and respond? No, because what I have to say may be inconsequential at the end of the day. It's just me feeling like I need to talk. And so I'm like, no, don't need to say that. And that's like my inner dialogue real quick. And then I continue to let me listen to what this person is saying. Maybe there's something that they're going to share that could be inspiring or a message or a learning point, right? All of these things. Verdi. Yes, I hate when someone does that. Yeah, I know. You hate that, right? I really feel like we need to get better at this as a society. And the first thing that we can do is we need to check ourselves first. So instead of pointing the finger, right? Because when you point the finger at someone, you got 3 fingers pointing back at you. I think it's really important that we take the lead and we start actively listening to other people. Becky said, I was told we can all eat together, but we can't all talk together. Yeah. Right? Like, nobody hears anything, right? Like it's such a really good point. I love that. That's a good one. Yeah. Hi, Becky. Yes. That's right. You're going to come with the smoke. I love Becky. Becky is one of our other amazing speakers who I got to spend some time with this weekend. And yeah, so I think it really starts with us. We can be the change that we want to see in the world. I believe that was, correct me if I'm wrong, is that a Gandhi saying or Is it a Muhammad Ali saying? A Muhammad Ali or a Gandhi saying? Please correct me. But who said the quote, be the change you want to see in the world? If you know, please put it in the chat because I'm like drawing a blank right now. But that's it. Like it starts with us is my point. We have to be the ones to initiate that. And I think what you'll find is that in reciprocation of that, one, people will do it to you. And two, people will really start to trust you. They'll feel connected to you. They'll want to be around you. So if you're one of those people that you're, I know they call it emo, but if you're one of those people that's really introverted, that you don't like going out and talking to people and all those things, totally fine. What I recommend is just find one person. Like you're at an event, you don't need to make friends with the entire room. Just find one person that you can just go off in a corner with and have a meaningful conversation and listen. All you have to do is listen. You're not required necessarily to talk. Actually, for an introvert, this is probably your dream, right? You don't have to say anything, you just listen. But yeah, I would, and then for the extroverts out there, I would challenge you to just listen, actively listen, which means that you have an active part in this listening process where you're not listening to respond, but you're listening to understand. So that's my challenge to everyone. Hi, Becky. Sometimes if I'm passionate about the subject, I am guilty of this. Yeah, it's totally true, right? So again, I'm not saying that, I don't want to point fingers. I'm definitely not pointing fingers at anyone. If anything, I want to point fingers at myself first, because this is a really big deal. Thank you, it's Gandhi. Thank you, Vincent. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. That's right. That's exactly right. So this is a great question. Thank you, City to Inspire. How do you just start a conversation? I'm going to be honest. A lot of times it's going to start a little superficial. It may start with the weather. It may start, oh, okay, like I had a lot of things to do today. But I think it could also just start with like, hey, like, how was your day today? My day was actually a little tough. And it might start with you sharing. You share a little bit. Yesterday was a little tough for me. And, so I'm here, but like, I'm not here because I'm dealing with a lot, or something. The conversation, honestly, if you're intentional about it, you're most likely going to have to start and be vulnerable yourself and test it. You can test it and say like, oh, like I had today's been a bit rough for me, or maybe yesterday was a bit rough for me, and test it. You don't have to say why. You don't have to give all the details, and see how the person responds. If they're like, oh man, I totally get it. I had a really rough day today too. Then maybe they're receptive. And now you can go back and forth, right? And you can like hear each other out, see how that goes. Maybe it's the response isn't that. Maybe it's like, oh yeah, oh okay. And then like they seem like they don't really care, they're not really interested. Then okay, this is not someone that I'm gonna like really share with, right? But I will say you will have to initiate it. You have to be intentional. If you're really trying to start a conversation from scratch, it will start off superficial, but I think you can slowly test the waters to talk about something a little bit deeper and see where you go from there. Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure who that was. Maybe compliment on their attire. Oh, compliments are wonderful. I love that, Verdi. That's a really great example. Compliment people. Who doesn't love a compliment, right? Like, oh, thank you. Like, I try to pick this out. I think, one of the, there is a book on this, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you've never read that, it feels kind of old school and may seem antiquated, but I actually highly recommend it. There are certain things that you can learn from that, but complimenting people is a real easy conversation starter, 100%. So again, it may start off superficial, but I 100% believe that if you're intentional about it and you start, it will certainly help to make the difference. And so thanks, Rita. I see that you told me it was Gandhi too. Thank you. Thank you. At least I was partially right? I knew it was one person or the other. I just couldn't remember in that moment. All right. So what is another way that we can really create creation? Create connection. So we talked about being vulnerable. We talked about active listening. And the third thing that I would say is actually setting boundaries. So you want to create boundaries where you feel safe and the other person feels safe. You want people to feel like they're in a place where they can speak without fear, where there is respect given both ways, and there's a genuine understanding. And when you feel like, okay, I can no longer be in this space as well, we have now broken that boundary. So I think setting really healthy boundaries is really, really healthy for creating those connections, those relationships, because it allows for the vulnerability to take place. It allows for active listening to take place. active listening, vulnerability can only take place where someone starts to feel safe and like they can create those connections. So I really feel like if we're having, again, if we're intentional in the conversations that we're starting, I think that's really a great way. I also want to just put it out there that sometimes you can make connections with somebody who's already in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a stranger. Sometimes you have people already in your life who you would like to be more strongly connected to, who you would like to have a deeper relationship with. This could be even like your mom, your dad. It could be a cousin, a brother, a sister, someone who's already in your life, your child. And you feel like, I don't know, things have been pretty superficial recently. You know, I really actually want to be connected with this person in my life and my family, your significant other, a colleague at work, a best friend who you just feel like you haven't talked in a while. We all have those friends where you feel like you haven't talked in a while and then you talk to them and it's like the conversation just kept going from where you last started, which is always a lot of fun. But that's because those people have created a connection already. They're used to going deep and talking about things that are really important to them, talking about their fears, talking about their concerns, the things that are really bothering them, those types of things. So anyway, I just want to put that out there, that it doesn't have to be a complete stranger. You can also start create closer relationships with people who are around you. Rita, I don't know if you're still on, but I remember recently you were telling me even like someone like your sister, you had a really great conversation with your sister and like you felt like things were kind of superficial. And so sitting down, having a conversation and like having a heart to heart, essentially, I think is another way to say it. And just talking about what's really going on each person's mind and each person's heart, I think was helpful in deepening a connection. So of course you're connected because you're family, but isn't it wonderful when you can deepen that in a way? And so I really think it's important that we don't disregard the people who are already in our life and that we can create deeper connections with them as well. Because ultimately, guys, this all goes back to our mental health. I talked about this earlier, that this is the show about your mental health journey. And so all of these tools are just things to help us with our mental health. We shouldn't be isolated. I really do feel like there's a culture of isolation right now. People feel more lonely than they ever have. And I think they expect people to come to them. So if you're out there and you think people are just going to come to you, I'm just going to gently encourage you that you may have to make the first move. I won't even say may. I'm going to gently encourage you to make the first move, to reach out, whether it's to a stranger or to someone you already know that's in your life, to make the first move, make the connection, see how they're doing, check in. Hey, I'm checking in on you, and not on like a superficial, like, hey, how are you doing? I want you to really tell me, how are you doing? Is there anything going on that I should know about? Maybe just seeing each other face to face. Sometimes you need to like see someone. Akiko was one of the speakers, and she was saying that she had a friend who said, I need to actually lay eyes on you, right? Just to see someone. That's really huge. And we talked a couple of episodes ago about like physical touch and connection and why that's important. Get your 8 hugs a day. And remember, 8 hugs a day. We need 8 hugs a day to maintain a healthy mental state, okay? Especially the men out there. And remember, when you hug a man, they need to be hugged for at least it's at least 10 seconds, I believe. If men get hugs for at least 10 seconds, that's when they finally feel a connection. For women, you don't need to embrace for as long. But these are just little tricks. That being said, these are just, again, things to help with the connection. I really hope this has been helpful for you guys. So in summary, I'm going to just go over some of the things that we've talked about. And it is, number one, what are the different reasons why we need to feel seen and heard? So 1, it affirms self-worth. 2, it helps us feel like we belong. And 3, it creates emotional security. All of these things helping with our self-esteem. What are signs that you could be in a superficial relationship? When the conversations lack any depth and you're just talking about things like the weather, they're one-sided in terms of you revealing things or being vulnerable or asking for support. And 3, when there's conditional engagement. And then what are 3 steps that we can take to create these meaningful relationships and connectivity? 1, you have to show vulnerability. And that means, nudge, nudge, you are going to have to be the one to start it. Be the change you wish to see in the world. You're going to have to start. Practice active listening. So when you're vulnerable, share. And then when someone is vulnerable with you, you're going to have to actively listen to understand, not to respond. And 3, set healthy boundaries. Make sure that you're setting a boundary so both parties, you and the other person, feel like you're safe. You can express your feelings and your thoughts without fear. And there's mutual respect and a genuine understanding that's being fostered between the two of you. I hope you found this helpful. Thank you, everyone, for jumping on. To all the new hotness team, it's great to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you next week, Monday. Have a great evening. Bye. Oh, don't forget to subscribe and like all the things so that way YouTube knows to share this with more people. Okay, bye.